Kingdom ordered steps during a government shutdown. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. That's what Psalm 37:23 says, Proverbs 20:24. Man's goings are of the Lord. The steps of a person are ordained by the Lord. So how, somebody say how, can I understand my own way? Tell your neighbor, get out your own way. I want to talk again about kingdom-ordered steps during a government shutdown. Father, thank you for the word that we're about to receive for the nourishment of this, our spiritual bodies. For Christ's sake, we pray. Amen. Have you ever felt unsure about what direction you're going in? Have you ever been uncertain about the future that you desire for yourself? Has your life ever felt like it's a leaf whose movement is based on which way the wind is going to blow? One of my favorite Looney Tune characters is not Mickey Mouse or Minnie Mouse. It's not any of the ones that most of you would choose. It used to be Daffy Duck, until I met one character by the name of Foghorn Leghorn. I say, boy. I used to think Daffy was a brother till I met Foghorn. And when I met Foghorn Leghorn, I found out that sometimes he would slide in some words of wisdom as he's trying to help the little chicken along. And one of them little chickens was bothering with something, and he was trying to give him instructions, and he was so busy focused on what he was doing, trying to figure out his own way, he wasn't listening to him. And so he finally just did in his usual Foghorn Leghorn style, amen, after hitting him upside his head. Don't y'all try that at home. But he literally, he said, I say, boy. He said, you just as confused as a feather in a whirlwind. And that's how some of you are going to go through 2019 if you try to make it on your own. You just going to be as confused as a feather in a whirlwind. That means blowing every kind of way. But I've determined that I'm tired of going and blowing wherever the elements of life decide to take me. I want to declare to you today that your life is not based on what some crazed person on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue decides for you. I want to declare to you that your life is not based on what Congress person or Senate person decides they want to do, because you just can't blame one branch of government for the challenges that are going on, and you can't blame the people who are doing it when you didn't vote to determine who ought to be sitting there. If you want to change something, that was your chance, that was your time. But even then, even if you did the right thing, even if you did what should be done and did what ought to be done, but it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to, if you're a believer, I came to give you some good news today. That you and your life is not determined by some edict that comes from Congress or some crazed individual. I came to tell you, no governor, no mayor, no person, not even somebody as close to you and guiding to you as a parent, can ultimately decide your destiny. Can I say this to you today? That if you love the Lord and the Lord loves you, if you're guided by the Lord and the Lord guides you, if you're led by the Lord and the Lord leads you, don't miss this now, here it comes. Your steps are ordered by the Lord. Oh, it's going to be a time here this morning. All right, I thought I had a crowd ready to go in. Let me go maybe preach it to some TSA workers. Amen. who don't have a paycheck coming today. Let me go talk possibly to some people who work for the IRS, or somebody work for the CIA, or somebody for the LMN, somebody who ultimately may have been depending on that check, some USDA worker, somebody who's looking for, listen, and some folk in here ain't but 2 SNAP benefits checks away from a blessing. Some of y'all who used to going and getting your little bridge card and making and getting things working, don't be afraid. Don't be a surprise when you get there and you ain't got nothing coming. Don't be shook up or shut down when you find out that you can't even go to the park or a museum without getting what you need done. And be careful if you decide you're going to fly somewhere, because even air traffic controllers are dependent upon certain things happening for them. But I want to speak to you and them and say, if you know the Lord and he knows and loves you the way you have declared, you don't have to have some false piety, some empty statement when you say, my steps are ordered by him. It is actually the declaration of the text today. Why does he do this? Because the text opens up, as I said earlier, that some psalms, as I preached from an earlier psalm, some psalms are designed to do different things. This psalm that you read about in this text, Psalm 37, which is one of the favorite to go to when you got trouble on your trail. Maybe some of y'all who ain't never had no problems, you can go and take you a quick nap. I'll be done in just about 23 minutes. But let me just say to you that if you got some trouble, anybody got some trouble been on your trail? Anybody know something about evildoers who block you? I mean, you've done your best, but just one person, amen, who talk about trying to build some wall that can't stop nothing and nobody in 2019. Amen. You need to know that at some level of your life and existence, that when you get people who act like kindergartners, who are supposed to be living at a high level ordered existence, that they have no ability to determine your destiny. There are people who are scared to do anything for fear of the outcome. Scared to talk to people because they're scared what folk might say. Scared to date or marry somebody because you don't know if you got somebody who's kind or crazy. You don't know if it's going to be Jeffrey Allen or Jeffrey Dahmer. Scared to go out of the house because you hear people are carjacking and robbing. Scared to drive after dark because you're scared some drunk driver or some crazy individual might pull up next to you. You're scared to fly because you're scared the plane might fall, or you might have some person who decided they wanted to go cuckoo on the pilot. You scared to ride in the car. You might get hit. Scared to catch a cab because you might fool around and they take it around. Scared to catch an Uber because you saw something about where they got jacked even in an Uber ride. Scared to walk because you might get run over. There are people scared of everything. But let me tell you, whether you're on a train or on a bus or on a cab or on an Uber or on a Lyft, on a plane or a train, whatever it might be, if you have ordered steps, it don't matter what you ride in. All you need to be concerned about is who's riding with you. Who walks with you. Your confidence does not come in what you ride in, but who you walk with. In 2019, I got good news. Not only is God in control of your salvation, but God has ordered your destination. Your incidents are not accidents, but uniquely and providentially designed and ordered by the divine stepmaster. Somebody say, I got a stepmaster. I ain't talking about the kind you got to help you lose 20 pounds that you done hung clothes on by now. I'm talking about I got a stepmaster, that is somebody who walks with me, who talks with me, who helps me along my way. Jesus frequently told his disciples not to worry about what's going on in life, because he said, don't even worry about me, because he was not unsure about his own destiny, nor whose hands his destiny would lie in. Read Matthew 6 sometime, where he says, take no thought for what you shall eat or what you shall drink. For if the Lord will clothe the grass, that today is in the field and tomorrow is in the oven. If he put colorful clothes on daffodils and lilies in the field, if he takes care of the bird, the sparrow that flies in the air, and they don't need a therapist to know if I'm going to eat today. He says, surely you ought to know that if you are my best creature in creation, who I love dearly, you should know that if you seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, everything will be handled for you. Jesus told them about his own destiny. Don't let your heart be troubled. Revised Bland Version, don't even trip. He's saying when you're passing through the challenges of time, be clear about your destiny. Whenever the disciples even thought that Jesus' enemies was about to have him, he would look at them and say, mine hour is not yet come. You can say that when you know when your hour is and when it's not. If you don't know what's going to come, you ought to know when it's not going to be. You ought to know that this is not my moment. That's why you ought to speak with confidence. Whenever something comes to you that's coming at you that's meant to destroy you, you got to learn to speak back to it and say, not now, not me. You got the wrong one. You ought to live so close to God, you ought to know when it's your time and when it's not your time. Let's go by the text. David opens up in this 37th Psalm saying that for the righteous, we ought not get bent out of shape over our circumstances, especially those beyond our control. Even evildoers and workers of iniquity can't overcome or overthrow the righteous. Why? Because God says to this writer in this psalm, the earlier psalm I read, we didn't know who the writer is, but I'm clear who this one is. It's a psalm of David. Somebody know who David is? Yes, this one David, who knew something about struggle and trouble. He says to him, I learned walking with God that the reason why I didn't have to worry about a bipolar leader is because my steps are ordered by God. Yes, he had a Saul in his life, just like you got a 46 in yours. Some of y'all still missed that. So he says, how do you handle it when there's somebody who has positioned themselves over your destiny? And it seems like they control even my paycheck. It must be something I'm concerned about, Pastor, because I got my check and got a bunch of zeros. Well, God can put a number in front of your zeros and make your zeros come out of nothing to something. Well, how does that happen? It ain't based on paycheck. It's based on blessing. It ain't based on your ability to deal with the bank cashing it. It has to deal with God sending somebody who can be a blessing to you in the midst of your challenge and your struggle. God is not limited to some Chase or PNC bank. God is not limited to some FDIC or LMNOP. God is not limited to somebody who works from GM or Ford or Chrysler. God is not limited to your job, that whatever it is that you have, because just because you filled out a W-2 don't mean you're going to get something coming back on the end. Why are you not afraid? Why are you not fretting? Why are you not concerned? David said, I'll tell you why. I don't fret because of evildoers, because he says, I have trust in the one who orders my steps. If you walk with God, even your enemies can't ultimately have you. Well, somebody say, well, God, it looks like they're doing a pretty good job. Maybe I'm even looking, and it looks like not only are they holding me down and keeping me back, they're prospering more than me. I can't even get a check, and they're giving each other raises. Federal workers can't get a check, but just gave the vice president and some of the people in the staff cabinet 10% raise. Come on, talk back to me here. Makes you want to holler, throw up both your hands. But God's saying to somebody, don't sweat it, because your timetable is not my timetable. You're on a different plan than those who ultimately take advantage of the poor, the weak, the distressed, and oppressed. Verse 2 says that they're on gonna be time and you're on soon be time. I want to say that backwards. I'm sorry. You're on gonna be time and they're on soon be time. I had to read the text a little closer. It says, yes, they shall soon be cut down. And it says when they are, you gonna be blessed. Somebody give some God some praise even right now, that knows that they can be cut down like grass on the 2-week cut. But you going to grow and prosper. Why? Because God says, I control the process. The steps of God are not ordered by good men. But the steps of a good man, or the same word I gave you earlier before, is a generic term for men or women. The steps of a good person are ordered by the Lord. That's why you got to be careful even in your prayers that you don't try to send God places you order. That you don't tell God what he ought to do. Come on, talk to me here. You got to be careful, because if you listen to some of our prayers, we send God so many places, he's probably so dizzy he don't even know what to do or where to go. Because in one prayer, we can send God to the hospital all over town. We can send him to every nursing home. We can send him to every jail cell. We can send him to your mama's house, your grandmama's house. We can send him by Pookie and Ray Ray's and everybody else. And we can send God everywhere, and you ain't going nowhere. God don't have to have you send him. He's already there. You ain't got to send God nowhere. He's everywhere at the same time. He wants you to show up at the hospital and announce he's there. He wants you to show up at the jail cell and say that he is able to bring the incarcerated. He wants you to show up and give care at the nursing home. He wants you to go see your own mama sometime, your own nephew and niece sometime, and tell them Jesus Christ is the way. Don't order God. God orders you. Trust in the Lord. Verse 3, and do good. So shalt thou dwell in the land. And verse 3, and verily thou shalt be fed. That's the promise of those who are walking with God. This year, I'm saying to you, instead of fretting, try trusting. Oh, I'm in the text. I'm in the verse. If you close your Bible, I'm in Psalm 37. I'm down at verse 3. It says, trust in the Lord and do good. Some of you say you trust in the Lord and you doing no good. I don't know how it is that people who ultimately name the name of God believes that you can operate by not listening to his voice. I think it's because, Keisha, I think it's because people forget that the devil talks too. I think I figured out why that is. I think they forget that the devil talks too. And unfortunately, Brother Crosby, there's some people who can identify the devil's voice a whole lot better than they can the Lord's. Ooh-wee. I can't say you make you amen. I can make me say ouch. There's some people who can identify the enemy's voice more than you can your master's voice. Oh, yeah. The devil talks often and quick. And listen, you ain't got to ask him. You ain't got to pray to ask the devil anything. Come on here. You ain't got to say to him, show me evil ways. Give me evil thoughts. Teach me evil deeds. Oh, come on. That ain't no prayer. All you got to do is wake up. And as soon as somebody get on your nerve, the devil's right there talking to you. Hit her in the mouth. That'll shut her up real quick. Walk off that job. You don't need this. Yeah, you do. You really do. I can go down a list and litany of things that most often we fail to remember that just because you heard a voice don't make it God's. Just because you get an impulse don't mean that was the Holy Spirit. I don't doubt that you ain't moved by a spirit. I'm just wondering what spirit it was. You see, because there's a difference in small letter spirit and capital letter spirit. And some of you can tell by reading, make sure that you ain't being motivated by spirits. Listen, the early service was quicker than this. I'm like, come on. If you read the Bible and it says spirits, chances are the Holy Spirit ain't going to be in the decision making. I don't care who it is, Jack, Jim. Come on. Smith brothers, whatever. Morgan, whoever you read, whoever. I don't know if Sirach is a man or a woman. I don't know who that is. A woman. Whatever you are motivated by, be careful, because the voice of God is distinct and God don't have to speak often. But if you know his voice, he's clear. You ain't got to teach a child how to lie or steal or be mischievous. They learn to listen to that voice early. You don't have to have the ability when you walk into a room to cut on the dark. Just leave the light off. You ain't got to cut on the dark, but you do have to cut on the light. Light is a choice. Darkness is the result of not choosing light. And when you decide that you're not going to choose the light of the gospel, the light of the limited path that God has given for you, the light of the Christian walk, you don't have to choose darkness. It's already there. Nobody got to make you sleep with the wrong person. Just stop waiting on the right one. Trust in the Lord and do good. So shall you dwell in the land, and watch this, and truly, or it says, if you settle in maintaining your integrity with God, he says, here's what you'll be able to do. You'll learn how to delight yourself in him. I like that word, delight. You know, I think about ice cream as a kid. You know, I remember, you know, because of the number of brothers and sisters that we had, we didn't often get a whole lot of anything. But if mama went and got, you know, a pint of ice cream, she would get sometime the half-gallon of Neapolitan. That's when I knew it was a treat. Because some of us like vanilla, some of us like strawberry. Come on here. Some of us like chocolate. So sometimes she just get a pint of either one. But when she got a gallon of all three, oh, come on, y'all don't know what delight means now. And I'm just saying, she give me a little scoop of vanilla. I didn't like that. Gave me gas, but I drank it because I ate it because I want some ice cream. You know, my sister, you know, had the affinity for chocolate, you know, but the truth is that in many cases, I didn't like my chocolate, you know, with stuff in it. You know, some people got them nuts and all other kind of stuff that's in there, and usually, you know, it had stuff. I like my ice cream. I just want ice and cream. That's it. That's all. But mama would get, though, the box of gallon of Neapolitan. She could give Vincent what he wanted, me what I wanted, Stephanie what she wanted, and Derek had to get whatever we had left. But the truth is, all of us could get something out the same box, and we could delight when we had Neapolitan. Well, God is saying to you that in this year, you don't have to wait on me to come around with your own flavor of the month. You ain't got to wait on. I got something in the same word for everybody in this house. If you just come and get something out of what God has for you, you don't need to just stay in the same box, and the same blessing can bless me and you together. You can delight this year in the Lord. And God will give you, watch, the desires of your heart. Be careful with that text. Because that only happens if you've committed your way unto the Lord, which means if you make God your only option, if you shut off all the other avenues, and you say, Lord, listen, if it ain't you, it ain't going to be nobody else. When you stop dating God and commit to him. Oh, Jesus, I'm going to have to slow it down. I said, it didn't say date the Lord. It didn't say come see him every Sunday. You see, dating only requires a weekend connection. Dating only requires a hookup with the holy when you're in the heavenly place. Dating only suggests that if you can just look forward to the weekend, y'all gonna make me break it down. Sylvester, I know none of y'all got one, but there used to be a time when brothers had something called the proverbial little black book. Don't hide, Foster. I can see you back there. Oh yeah. I hate to reveal this secret, but since all these brothers and gave up, on that, I just need to let you know, Claiborne, they used to have something called the little black book. I know you never heard of this, sisters, but can I just tell you how it works? Can I give you a hookup? No. My son is young. He looked at me and said, Dad, don't tell all of it. But I said, but let me tell you, see, the little black book had more than one name and one number. That's why it's a book. It ain't a page, it's a book. It had an accumulation of several names and several numbers. Right? So when Charlie, before he met Martha, I just happened to see it. He wanted to date one of the Mississippi girls that he saw, and her name had been added to the book. He had the capacity to get the book out and said, hey, Susie Mae, how you doing? I've been thinking about you all week. You think we can get together on Friday? Friday ain't good. How about Saturday? That don't work? Okay, cool. All right. I'll tell you what. I'll talk to you later. In those days, it wasn't this. It was. Hey, Bessie Mae. How you doing? I've been thinking about you all week. I just thought that I'd check what you see. How was your week? Were you pretty good? What'd you do on Friday? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Yeah, y'all got engaged last week? Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't. Okay, good. All right. No, don't worry about it. No, I'm good. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. Okay, listen, I know you're getting ready to tell me about your new boyfriend, but I got to go. Okay, is that okay? All right, fine. Hey, Linda Faye, how you doing? And you keep going through the book. Come on, talk to me here. Till you find somebody that's willing, ready, and available. Come on, talk to me here. And once you get the date, you can start looking forward to the date. But when you go on the date, you don't take all your money. You just take what you're going to spend. There you go. And depending on who she was, you didn't go to the finest restaurant on the first one. They had to graduate there. You didn't take everything. You had predetermined what you're going to spend, where you're going to go, and it all depends on what she's going to do. Oh, I'm going to wake up the rest of the house here now. The date is determined based on those circumstances, and you kept the black book. But watch this. Even if it's a good date and you had a great time, you don't want them calling you Monday talking about how you doing. You don't want them coming by the house on Tuesday asking you where you going. You don't want them looking at you on Wednesday in case you with somebody else talking about who is that. Come on, talk to me here. You have to look at him and say, baby, it was just a date. You can't be upset with me if I don't call you no more. or call you. Listen, I'll talk to you again next weekend. In case you think I'm just giving dating lessons here today, let me just say to you, in 2019, God's saying to somebody, stop treating me like a cheap date. You called me up this week and said you needed me. I heard you when you said, Father, I stretch. I heard you when you say I need thee every hour. I heard you in that accident. I heard you when you're about to lose your job. I heard you when the government shut down. I heard you when they walked out on you. I heard you when you called my name. And you asked me and you told me you'd meet me at the church Sunday morning and you see me there. And you came and I'm here. I blessed you. You got a good word. You got good worship and everything was good. And so on Monday, I was looking for you to call me again. On Tuesday, I was asking, who's that God you with? On Wednesday, I was asking you, how come you act like you don't know me when somebody's inquiring about me? God said, I'm sick of you putting me in your book and only calling on me when you want to date me and you wait and have to wait every weekend on your favorite pew at your favorite place. And even then, you keep showing up late for the date, and sometimes you don't show up at all. I'm at the church every Sunday, and I don't see you. I'm in my place all the time. I don't see where you are. And sometimes God is saying, I'm tired of you treating me like I've not done what I told you I would do. In other words, I don't want a date, I want a commitment. Commit your way unto the Lord. Oh, I'm in the book here now. When you move past dating to marriage, you're committing. God said, I don't want to date you, I want to marry you. He's even saying to somebody, I'm married to the backslider. Even if you've gone beyond me, if you've messed up, if you've gone backwards, if you messed up in your life, I'm still married to somebody who hasn't treated me right, but you got to make a commitment this year. Commit is a word that they use in certain circumstances in life. Let me have to break it down to the hearing impaired. When you go from high school to college, they have an office called admissions. Somebody say admissions. Admissions means you go in there and you sign up for your classes, right? You sign up for whatever, teachers, whatever. You can choose whatever day of the week you want to go. You can choose whatever time, whatever one is offered in the catalog in the book, etc. However, I wouldn't go and expect to get a grade if you ain't paid up front. So admissions suggests as long as you make your payment, you can, listen, you don't even have to go to class. Once you paid your money, ain't gonna be no truant officer call you at the dorm room or talking about where you at. Once they got your money, honey, you can stay drunk all semester long. You can be high as NASA's flying over. I ain't talking about no kite. I'm talking about you up there. You done whacked out on weed. You done be bummed out on. Listen, you can do whatever you want to do. You can stay booed up from January to May. But baby, when the grades come out, understand, ain't nobody gonna make you do anything, because admissions means you can choose to do what you want to do, leave when you want to leave, go when you want to go, study when you want to study, do what you want to do, and the only time most people pray is when the test comes. That's admissions. Come on, hospital even has admissions. As long as you give them your Blue Cross Blue Shield, your HAP, or whatever you got, you can go in and they can check you in, but can't nobody make you stay there. Because when you are admitted, you can leave whenever you get ready. But when somebody tells you you committed, like when you go to court and they about to send you to jail. I know nobody in here heard that, but you heard about this, right? If the judge says you got 10 years, you don't get to leave when you get ready to leave. You don't get to choose whether you want to go tomorrow or today. You don't get to have an opportunity to tell. When you've been committed, somebody else tells you what you're going to do. When you go to the army and you sign up, once you get in, you are committed. You don't tell them when you want to fight or when you don't. When you want to get your hair long or when you want to cut off. You don't tell them what uniform you're going to wear or not. When you're committed, you do what your officer tells you to do. Come on, tell me somebody. When you've been committed, you no longer operate on your own schedule. God says, I don't want dating. I want commitment this year. Which means you learn to listen for my voice. Stop asking God to order your steps and you can't hear him when he's talking. If you're going to have ordered steps, you have to listen to the stepmaster. All right, let's break it on down here. The key to verse 23 that's problematic is this. First of all, who can qualify as a good man? Maybe that's what's hanging somebody up. Maybe that's where some of y'all amens and stuff. It says the steps of a good man or a good woman. Who qualifies? Surely nobody I'm talking to right now. And even the person with the mic is questionable. So if you're thinking good means perfect, that ain't who he's talking to. Isaiah said, I'm a man of unclean lips. My righteousness is as filthy rags. Jeremiah says, my heart is deceitful above all things. Romans 3:10 says, there is none righteous, no, not one. Romans 3:23 says, not y'all have sinned. It says all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. 1 John 1:8 says, if we say we have no sin, we lie, and truth is not in us. It says in verse 10, if we say we have not sinned, we make him a liar. Because the truth is, he says you a double lie, because the truth is, you can't say you not only don't have no sin, you can't say you have not sinned. So who qualifies? Good is a relative term. What's good to you is not necessarily good to me. What's good for you is not necessarily what's good for me. What's good about you is not necessarily what's good about me. So how can we interpret this text properly? You may think that your goodness is based on what you do or don't do. But I come to tell you that God is saying, first of all, once you have come into my family, it's no longer about you. It's about me working through you. Which means I don't come with my own happy, glad rags on. I'm dressed in his righteousness. I'm doing what I do because God, not only to be saved, I'm doing it because I am saved. He says, I'm doing what I'm doing because I have a new officer now, because I was sold under sin. I was sold into slavery. I was doing what I was doing for the devil because the devil owned me. He didn't have to make me do anything. I was already his. He didn't have to tempt me. I wanted to do it. He didn't have to help me. I was helping him. In some cases, when you were sold out to sin and not trying to do right, you didn't have to worry about what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about about at least 100 people right now who's trying to do the right thing, who's trying to live the right way, who wants to please God, who wants to trust God, who wants to commit to God. God says, let me help you do it. Stop trying to do it by yourself. Just listen to your commanding officer. Because when I saved you, I didn't save you and set you free. I didn't save you from a person who was a slave to sin and say, now go do what you want to do, is your thing. No, he says, you went from one level of ownership to another. No, you're not your own. Watch this, you are bought with a price. Which means now you have a commanding officer that loves you. Now you have a commanding officer who controls you in a way that helps you to do what you said you wanted to do. You have somebody who will help you in a time of need. Somebody ought to thank God that he orders my steps. Now these steps can be given in a lot of interpretive means. Steps implies marching. It means my cadence and my direction is being called out and ordered by somebody greater than me. Ordered, kun, means to be firmly established or fixed. It can mean one of 5 different things. Are you interested? Thank you, I thought you were. First of all, order means formation. That means to create something out of nothing. When God, Jehovah God, deals with the issue of creation. Moses speaks about it by saying that all creation came out of, we call ex nihilo. That is, he made everything out of nothing. Yeah. You got to be careful about how some people want to make science the order of our beginnings, because everything in science has to start with something. You start with some matter to produce some matter. You start with one substance to produce some substance. You start with one thing in order to create some other thing. But the power of creation ex nihilo is God didn't make us out of something. He made us out of nothing. Come on, talk to me here. That when he deals with the issue of creation, it means out of nothing he made everything. All creation was called into existence. Out of creation, chaos brings community. And formation means God ordered us into existence. It also means the actual preparation of a future event, which suggests that when you sit at a restaurant, you can sit down with nothing on the table and tell some table waiter or waitress what you want. And within a short period of time, prayerfully, something will be on the table. Why? Because you ordered it. Y'all missed what I just said. It means you can speak something and something may not be there, but they anticipate that you got something to pay for what you ordered. And when you say what you want, they'll bring you, hopefully, what you want like you want it. That means ordered. Ordered also means to move by the control of someone that has spoken something, which means when God says do something, he wants you to do it, just like if your parents, if you were born in an African-American family, if they said do something, they didn't mean to tell you 25 times. Come on, talk to me here. Somebody related to my parents. Understand, you didn't have but a couple of times. They spoke once, and sometimes that's all you got. But when they spoke and they didn't get it, they might speak again. If you still didn't do it, you hear some words like, boy, did you hear me? Girl, you want me to get up and come over there? And see, those are words that suggest that out of what they've ordered, they got the ability to order something else for you. Oh, Jesus here. That means if you don't get to doing what they said do, they gonna get to doing that will help you do what they said do. Come on. And some of us need a helper along the way. So that when you ain't doing what God said do, sometime he'll send along a helper. Come on here. That's why trouble comes in some of our lives, is because you need a helper because you ain't listening very well. Because hearing implies doing. In both African and Jewish background, when you read Isaiah 6, when you talk about it says, here am I, send me, it says in the next verse, they have ears but will not hear. Which means if you are speaking, God, I'm going to do it, but you ain't done nothing yet, then that means your words mean nothing without your action. How many times have you told God, I'm going to do this or that, and ain't moved yet? Because he says if you really meant it, I wouldn't have to just hear it, I would see it. Hearing God implies I'm doing something. So ordering sometimes also means that when God gives us a command, he expects to see the results, not just hear the results. And finally, it means being confident that the person who spoke is able to direct you in the right direction. When the general speaks or gives you an order, it may not come to you directly from the general. Often it doesn't. When you get your orders, it may have started with a general, but it might come to you through some sergeant or some corporal. You see, because God's word is often a mediated word, just like it is in military terms. So some of us can't follow directions because you want God to talk to you, not your pastor. You want God to talk to you, not some deacon. You want God to talk to you, not some mother of the church. But maybe the reason why your footsteps are so jacked is because God is speaking to you through that mother, through that deacon, through that pastor, through that parent. And you need to learn how to hear God's voice when it's coming through a mediated source. And trust that it's for your good. You know the story about
ship that was lost. And during the time the ship was lost, he was sitting out there saying, I'm going to wait on the Lord. He sat there on this little raft and said, I'm going to wait on the Lord. A tugboat came by and said, come on. He said, no, I'm waiting on the Lord. Sailboat came by. Said, come on, get on board. He said, no, I'm waiting on the Lord. Cruise liner came by. Said, we got room. Come on, we'll pull you up. He said, no, I'm waiting on the Lord. Helicopter came by. Dropped down the rope and said, come on. He said, I'm waiting on the Lord. After a while, sure enough, got ate up by some alligator, crocodile. Some came along, ate him up. Walked up, got to the kingdom, and said, God, I know that I'm your child. I know you look after me. But you heard me say I was waiting on you and I was coming, but why would you let me get eaten up on my way here? Why would you let me go through that terrible experience of that crocodile eating me up and going through that challenge on my way in order to get here? He said, well, if you didn't have to go through that, I sent a tugboat, I sent a sailboat, I sent a cruise liner, I sent a helicopter. I said, but you sat there talking about you wait. I sent somebody to help you avoid that experience. And that's all God is telling somebody right now. If you just listen and watch and see that maybe he's already sent you something in somebody. It will help you avoid your bad experiences of life. So I'm saying to you as I close, that if you commit your way to the Lord, verse 7 says, rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Here's that word again. Fret not thyself because of him who prospereth in his own way. In other words, don't fret because somebody else looks like they're doing better than you. Don't trip because a man got wicked schemes against you. It says, verse 8, don't get angry. Don't turn to wrath. Don't decide to do evil and do evil for evil, because wicked people will one day be wiped out, which means if you do wicked, you're going to go with them. What are you going to do? I'm going to wait on the Lord. The verse 10 says, for yet a little while, when they no longer exist. It says what Jesus quoted in the Beatitudes, verse 11, the meek shall inherit the earth, and the delight ones shall be in the abundance of peace. The wicked plotteth against the just and gnasheth with deceit. But watch this. It says, God says, I got a sense of humor. The reason why I'm taking them on the slow route is because the Lord likes to laugh at folk who think they're going to take you down. He likes to laugh at people who think that they're going to mess you up. He likes to laugh at folk who think that evil's going to have the last word. Tell your neighbor, God deserves the last word. For he sees the end of your enemy. Can I get a witness here? So why are you waiting on the Lord, Pastor Bland? Well, I've learned God controls my steps. And when he controls my steps, it means he controls my pace. Which means as I'm stepping, I can't go at the same pace you're going. I can't watch how fast he's taking you, because my pace may be different than your pace. Some of us can't stand it to see others excel quicker than you. So in 2019, stop looking at somebody else's pace and say, Lord, order my steps. Can I hear you say, order my steps? Abraham wasn't called till he was 75 years old to get started on his work. Josiah was 8 years old and a king already. Y'all missed what I said. Some people, God was able to take time, like David, to go through a process before he became used of God. Paul got knocked down one day, and it wasn't but 3 years later, he's out preaching and organizing churches. You can't look at somebody else's progress. Noah preached for 120 years, and the only people got saved was people in his own family, and the only reason why they went is because Moses told them to come. And some animals who came 2 by 2. Jonah preached one message, and the whole city got saved. And even he didn't want to see him get saved. Jeremiah preached, and nobody heard it. Elijah preached from Mount Carmel, and fire fell and consumed all the prophets. What are you saying, preacher? Don't compete, don't compare, don't complain. Just continue at the pace God's got you on, and stop looking at what everybody else is doing. Somebody say, he controls my pace. He controls my pace and my pause. What about my pause? It means sometimes he puts me on hold. You ever been on hold? You ever have somebody put you on hold? Have you ever put somebody on hold? Everybody on hold ain't waiting on another conversation. Sometimes people get on hold so they can keep from cussing you out. Sometimes people put you on hold because they need to just calm down. Sometimes people put on hold because they got something else they need to do that's more important than having this conversation with you. But let me just say, whenever God puts you on hold, it's never for an evil intent. Before I had these modern day areas, one of my best and favorite technology actually was a cassette recorder. Yeah, I admit, before CDs, DVDs, and all this other stuff, MP3s and all kind of stuff, I enjoyed my cassettes. I'll be honest with you, I still got a whole bunch of them. And listen, I'm still looking for somebody who sells players or fixes them because I still want to listen to my cassette. I ain't trying to transform them into nothing. I want to keep them as it is because I don't want they didn't got. Only thing I hate about cassettes is they get kind of wound up around the little wheel, and you got to get a pencil and put it in there and straighten it back out and get it back on track. Oh, but when you get it right, listen, that thing works real good for me. But here's what I like about my cassette is that when I'm listening to something and I want to catch it again, I can push the pause button. And I can stop and I can think about what it just said. And if I miss it, I'll just rewind a little bit. Then I push the play and it'll come back up. Then I can pause it again. If I like it enough, I can just rewind it again. Then I play it again. I can do it as long as I want to. But pause, watch this, is different than stop. I wondered, Harold, you're in electronics, you can understand what I'm talking about. I don't know what they're looking at over there. But pause acts like stop. I wondered why they put a pause button on there when they got the stop button. Because all I got to do is push stop, and it gives me the same seeming action as pause till I understood something. When I'm looking for something, while it's in pause, I found out on the cassette player I had, I could push rewind while it's in pause and hear where I wanted to go. Y'all missed what I just said. Or I could push forward and see when I want to get past all the singing and get to the preaching. Because while it's in pause, I could hear it talking fast, couldn't hear what it's saying, but I could get to a destined end, but I couldn't do that in stop mode. What are you saying, Pastor? There are some people who are complaining because God has paused you in this point of your life. But let me just say to you, you blame God for having stopped you at this point of your life. I just want to let you know, it might have felt like he stopped you, but he's only paused you. It might have felt like he disengaged you, because when he stops you, everything shuts down. All the mechanisms pull back. The rollers don't roll no more. You can rewind, you can do what you want. Nothing happens in stop. And I want you to know before you give up on God, maybe he put you on pause. Somebody say he put me on pause. Because when he put me on pause, it looks like I ain't getting no money. When he puts me on pause, it looks like I ain't got no spouse. I ain't getting no house. I ain't getting no car. I ain't got no job. Church ain't acting right. I ain't got nothing working for me. I ain't got nothing happening the way I want it to be. I'm not getting what I want right now. But God knows how to pause me until he's ready to engage me. He'll pause my romance until I learn how to appreciate the person he's got for me or learn how to love myself. He'll pause my finance until I stop blowing the money I got right now before he gets me some more. He'll pause my occupational advance so that I won't think that what I got because of my resume, or I got because of my good looks, or I slept with the boss. He'll help me to get to the point that I'm something and somebody because God promotes me, and promotion comes from the Lord. I've learned how to depend on him, so when he's on pause, it don't mean he's done with me. It means he's keeping me here until he's ready for the next level. Moses was a big man. Moses was a big man in Egypt. But after 40 years, God put him on pause. For 40 years on the backside of a desert. He was in good play first 40 years. Pause for 40 years. Thought it was over. He hadn't stopped because God took him off pause 40 years later and said, now I want you to go and deliver my people because you've been paused long enough to understand how sheep work. So now I want to engage you to go and deliver the sheep of the house of Israel. If I go down the life of so many people in the biblical text, you'll find out God didn't stop them, he just paused them. Because God controls the pauses in my life. Are you angry with God right now because he has you on pause? Because maybe this government shutdown is just a pause, not a stop. Maybe this ability for someone else to seem like they control your finances is God is pausing you because at some point you was talking about your big bank because you thought it came because of how much you made. You talking about your big bank and you what and your other because you was talking about what you do and how you got certain skills and certain degrees and certain letters and certain credentials and you have certain trade skills and you work your way up the ladder and you start talking about God says I can get one person to shut you down for just a paused moment until you sometime recognize that when I didn't miss a meal, it was the Lord that supplied me. When I still made my mortgage payments, it was the Lord that took care of me. When I still had the ability to make sure the kids had what they needed and I didn't have to worry about whatever, it was the Lord that made a difference in my life. And sometimes God pauses you long enough till you recognize who it was. And then sometimes God pauses you because if you keep going, you're going to run into something that's up there that you can't handle. So he'll have you wait right here until not only it's ready for you, but until you are ready for it. There was a man who decided that he was going to give up on all the ways that he knew to trust in other people and said, I'm going to live my life now trusting God. His wife died on him. She used to cook all of his meals. But he said, you know what? I recognize that the Lord is going to provide for me. And even though I don't have a lot of resources, there are a few meals I know how to cook for myself. And so he was every day now depending on the Lord, making it every day, cooking those meals, the things he knew to do, and kept singing, going to church, working, worshiping, saying, I'm a trust in the Lord. His neighbor looked at him and said, look, sir, I don't know why you keep doing that, but you got a lot of options that you could use. But you know, it's a whole lot of women at that church that would love to come over here and cook for you. He said, no, I'm going to wait on the Lord. For real, that's a good idea. He said, no. He said, I'm going to trust God. He said, look, man, he says, you got a lot of skills. You got a lot of gifts. You got stuff you can do. He says, don't you know that you can go out and there's certain things you can do that will help you to make. He said, no, I'm going to wait on God for my reason. He says, you're living on your Social Security, sir. He says, and don't you know that you can lose it and you be done? He said, well, listen, even if they shut it down, I'm going to wait on the Lord. And sure enough, came along and for some reason, the Social Security office got something confused and had it recorded that he had died. He was still living, but they made a mistake and had it recorded that he had died. Money stopped coming in. Didn't get the check anymore. His neighbor looked and saw that his resource seemed to be cut off. And he started smiling and laughing. He said, surely he's going to have to depend on me now. He's going to have to go and do what I was suggesting to him now. But the man kept going to the church and praying and trusting God and saying, I'm going to wait on the Lord and trust in him during this season. And the man looked at him one day and said, you know, that man's going to fool around and die, talking about he's going to wait on the Lord. He says, he's talking about somebody's going to help him. He says, I tell you what, he says, I'm going to trick him. So he went up to the store. He ordered up a bunch of groceries. And he got all kinds of bags and goodie bags. And when the man went to church, he went and put him on the front door. Put it at the door where he could see it when he got back. The man was at church, and on his knees, he said, Lord, I've made it through as long as I can. I'm not going to lean on nobody else. I'm going to trust that some kind of way you're going to supply my need. He was on his knees praying. He got up, he went to the house, and he got to the door, and he saw all of these bags of groceries and all of these goodies in front of his door. He threw up his hands and said, God, I thank you. I knew you wouldn't fail me. I knew you were going to come through for me. And then his neighbor jumped out of the bushes and said, aha, God didn't do it. I did it. He looked at the groceries. He looked at the man. He looked at the man. He looked at the groceries. He looked up toward heaven. Then he said, well, the devil might have delivered, but I know who sent it. Somebody needs to know in this year no matter where it comes from. The devil might have to deliver it, but God is going to supply your need. God is going to order your steps. God is going to get you what you want. God is going to make. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the way of the sinner, nor sit in the seat of the scornful, but let your delight be in the law of the Lord. Meditate on him, pray day and night, and you shall prosper in all your ways. Give God some praise in this house if you know that the steps of the good man are ordered by the Lord. Come on, give God praise.